At 78, I look back with profound gratitude on one pivotal decision: not moving away from my friends. So many of us face that crossroads, often nudged by family or the promise of an easier life, but I want to share why staying was the greatest gift I gave myself. I remember the conversations, the well-meaning advice. You'd be closer to the kids, Eleanor. Think of the new retirement communities, all the amenities, so much easier. Or the siren call of new adventures, a fresh start in a sunny climate. It all sounds so logical, doesn't it? The thought of less upkeep, someone else handling the chores, a life free of responsibilities, it certainly held an appeal. But I couldn't shake a quiet feeling, a little whisper that perhaps easier didn't always mean better, that some things, once given up, are almost impossible to get back. It's easy to wonder, though, what if I had chosen that path? My dear friend Martha, she did. We'd been inseparable since kindergarten, sharing scraped knees and heartbreaks, watching our children grow up together. When her daughter suggested she move closer, hundreds of miles away, to a lovely, active adult community, Martha was so excited. Her family assured her she'd be happier, more cared for, and have endless new connections. I heard the enthusiasm in her voice, the promise in her words, mirroring exactly the reassurances I'd heard myself. She packed up her life, full of hope, and embarked on what she believed would be her golden years. But as time went on, our conversations began to change, and I started to see the hard truths she faced, truths I thankfully avoided. Now, let's talk about the first hard truth, one that often sneaks up on people when they make a big move. It's what I call the fading echoes of familiar faces. For those who choose to uproot, the biggest shock isn't the new house or the unfamiliar grocery store. It's the unexpected, profound depth of loneliness. I've heard it from so many, and I saw it in Martha. We think we'll just make new friends, join new groups, and life will carry on. But what we often don't realize is the immense value of the simple, daily interactions we take for granted. The nod from the neighbor across the street, the friendly chat with the barista who knows your order, the smile from the librarian who remembers your favorite author. These aren't grand gestures, but they are the quiet threads that weave the rich tapestry of our social lives. Being alone is one thing. Feeling truly lonely, utterly unmoored from a social fabric you spent decades building, is quite another. That's a chill that can seep into your bones. I remember Martha, full of bright hopes, telling me about all the new clubs she planned to join, the bridge games she'd find, the new friends she'd make. She was so optimistic, and I cheered her on, but as the months went by, her calls to me started changing. At first, she'd talk about the weather or the beautiful scenery, but then her voice would drop a little. "I went to the community center again today, Eleanor," she'd say, and everyone was very kind, but they all seemed to have their established groups. I felt like an outsider, just observing, never quite belonging. She'd tell me about sitting in the common room with her coffee, watching others laugh with people they'd known for years, and feeling an invisible wall between them. It wasn't that people were unkind, she stressed. It was just different. The connections weren't deep. They weren't shared history. They weren't the easy, unspoken comfort of true friendship. Her coffee cup might have been full, but her heart felt empty. So I want you to ask yourself, are you truly ready to start from scratch socially? Are you prepared to put in the immense effort it takes to rebuild a social network? Not just a list of acquaintances, but genuine, deep friendships. Because those bonds, the ones forged over decades of shared laughter and tears, they're not easily replaced. They are the anchors of our spirits, and they take years, sometimes an entire lifetime, to cultivate. Don't underestimate the comfort and strength you draw from being truly known, truly seen by the people around you, the ones who know your history and share your present. Once you give that up, you might find the silence louder than you ever imagined. Now, let's talk about the second hard truth, one that often comes with the best intentions: the invisible wall of distance. When you think about moving closer to family, your children and grandchildren, they often promise they'll visit all the time, and I truly believe they mean it. They love you, and they want you near, but life, as we all know, has a way of getting in the way. Work, school, children's activities, even just the everyday errands. They all add up. What once was a quick drive across town becomes a weekend commitment, a full tank of gas, or even a plane ticket. Spontaneous visits become planned events, and the space between those events grows longer than anyone ever intended. I saw this play out with Martha. She moved hundreds of miles away, so excited to be just an hour's drive from her son and his family. At first, the visits were frequent, just as promised. But gradually the calls to me became more frequent than the visits to her. "They're just so busy, Eleanor," she'd say, her voice a little smaller each time. "Little Timmy has soccer, and Sarah has piano lessons." Then came the holidays. Oh, the holidays were the hardest. Everyone promised to come, but somehow plans always changed at the last minute. I remember one video call with her face looking so tired. She told me she felt like a forgotten picture on a mantelpiece, out of sight, out of mind, even though she knew her children loved her. The distance, she realized, had built an invisible wall. And that's where my own decision really felt like a blessing. My children and grandchildren don't live in my house, of course, but they're close enough for those wonderful, unplanned moments. Just yesterday, my granddaughter, Lily, popped over after school because her dad was running late. We sat on the porch, shared a glass of lemonade, and she told me all about her day. It was a small thing, but it was real. It was connection, effortlessly woven into the fabric of our lives. I can wave to my son as he drives by, or my daughter can drop off groceries without it being a major undertaking. This everyday proximity, this unseen gift, keeps us connected in ways that scheduled visits simply can't replace. So I have to ask you, truly, from the bottom of my heart, are you prepared for that? Is the perceived convenience of a new location truly worth the potential for less time, less spontaneous time with the people who matter most? Because no matter how much your family loves you, no matter their best intentions, life is relentless. And once you're out of sight, it's easier than you think to become out of mind. Think about the quiet moments, the unexpected hugs, the easy conversations. What price are you willing to put on those? Truth number 3, a profound one, is the erosion of your local identity and sense of belonging. When I considered moving, I realized I wasn't just thinking about leaving a house. I was contemplating leaving behind decades of time. My history is woven into these streets, these shops, these faces. It's the comfort of Mrs. Gable at the bakery knowing my favorite scone, or Mr. Henderson at the hardware store remembering exactly which screws I need for my birdhouse. It's the familiar nods, the quick conversations, the feeling of being a known, cherished part of something bigger. These aren't grand gestures, but they are the quiet threads that make up the fabric of your life, making you feel truly at home and seen. Martha, my dear friend, learned this hard truth firsthand. When she first moved, she was so enthusiastic about getting involved. She joined a book club, tried a walking group, even volunteered at the local library. "I'm making a fresh start, Eleanor," she'd tell me over the phone, her voice bright with hope. But as the months turned into a year, her letters started to change. She wrote about feeling like a constant newcomer, always on the outside looking in. People were kind, she said, but their friendships were already established, their routines set. She struggled to connect with local traditions, feeling like she was observing a play rather than performing in it. It was like trying to plant a fully grown oak tree in new soil. The roots just didn't want to take hold. And that's where I found my strength, here in my garden. My roots run deep in this soil, just as they do in this community. I'm not just Eleanor. I'm Eleanor, who volunteers at the annual bake sale, Eleanor, who helps organize the neighborhood watch, Eleanor, who's been here for 50 years. This long-standing presence gives me a sense of purpose and belonging that can't be bought or easily rebuilt. I know my contribution matters, however small. I am a thread in this community's fabric, and that connection gives me a profound sense of peace and worth. It's a quiet strength. knowing you are exactly where you are meant to be. So I ask you, have you truly considered how much of your identity, your very sense of self, is tied to your current surroundings? What defines your home? Is it merely the building you sleep in? Or is it the tapestry of relationships, memories, and shared experiences that you've woven over the years? It's easy to think, home is where my family is. But what if home is also where you are known, where your history lies, and where your spirit truly feels anchored? Don't underestimate the quiet power of simply belonging. Now, let's talk about the fourth hard truth, the exhausting weight of new beginnings. Many of us, when we consider a big move, focus on the appealing idea of a fresh start, a new chapter. It sounds wonderful, doesn't it? But what nobody really talks about is the sheer physical and mental exhaustion that comes with it when you're older. The packing, the unpacking, navigating unfamiliar streets, finding new doctors, understanding new routines, adapting to entirely different surroundings. It's a monumental task. Your body and mind, after decades of established patterns, aren't as quick to adjust, and the stress can be immense. I remember Martha's calls during her first year after moving. At first, they were filled with the chaos of moving logistics, but then they changed. Her voice grew heavier, tinged with a persistent weariness. Eleanor, she'd often say, "I'm just so tired, constantly tired." The effort of finding a new grocery store, learning the bus routes, figuring out where to get her hair done, even just remembering new names, it all just wore her down. She told me she felt like she was always starting over in every aspect of her life, and it left her utterly depleted, too tired for the things she used to enjoy. Meanwhile, here I was, still tending my garden, still volunteering at the library, still taking my evening walks where I knew every crack in the pavement and greeted familiar faces. My energy wasn't spent on navigating a new, bewildering world. It was channeled into living my life, into the hobbies and connections that bring me joy and purpose. There's a true luxury in established routines, a quiet efficiency that conserves your physical and mental reserves. It allows you to focus on what truly nourishes your spirit, instead of being drained by constant adaptation. So I ask you, where do you want your precious energy to go in these golden years? Do you want to spend it on the arduous, often thankless task of relocating and rebuilding a life from scratch? Or do you want to invest it in the life you've already built, the joys you've cultivated, and the connections that sustain you? Our energy levels naturally decrease as we age, and making a major transition becomes exponentially more challenging. Think carefully about where you're directing that finite, precious resource. We've talked about loneliness, the distance from family, losing your place in a community, and the sheer exhaustion of starting over. But there's a fifth truth, one that runs deeper than all the others, and it's often the most devastating. It's the unseen cost to your spirit. You see, when you lose your daily friends, your familiar routines, and the very ground your history is built upon, it's more than just an inconvenience. It's a slow, quiet erosion of your sense of self, of the very joy that grounds you. I call it losing your anchor. That feeling of being truly rooted, completely yourself, that's what begins to fray when everything you know is suddenly gone. It's a profound internal shift, one that can leave you adrift. I saw this happen to Martha, and it broke my heart. In our early calls after her move, she'd talk about the new clubs, the friendly faces. But as the months turned into years, her voice changed. It wasn't just a lack of enthusiasm, it was a quietness, an apathy that settled over her like a shroud. Martha, who once sparkled with stories and laughter, began to sound resigned. She'd sigh on the phone, telling me she just felt tired, not physically, but deep in her bones. The spark, that vibrant energy that made Martha, had slowly faded. It was like the constant effort of trying to belong, of being an outsider, had simply worn her spirit down. To watch a lifelong friend lose her vitality like that, it's a truly heartbreaking thing to witness. And that's why I am so profoundly grateful for my own choice. I didn't lose my spark. Instead, I've had the luxury of deepening it. My everyday joys aren't just memories. They're happening right now. Laughing with Sarah over coffee at our usual cafe, Feeling my cat, Mittens, purr on my lap as I read in my favorite armchair, the casual wave from Mrs. Henderson across the street as I water my roses. These small, consistent moments, woven into the fabric of a life I built and nurtured, are my anchors. They reaffirm my belonging, day after day. They are the simple, powerful reasons my spirit remains full, vibrant, and deeply, wonderfully content. So if you're standing at that crossroads, thinking about a big move, I urge you, with all the wisdom I've gathered over my 78 years, to ask yourself this: what price are you truly willing to pay for your spirit? Are you prepared to gamble with the very core of your joy, your sense of self, the intangible threads that connect you to who you are? Don't trade decades of established happiness, of being known and loved right where you are, for a fleeting promise of easier that might cost you everything. Because once that spark dims, once that anchor is lost, getting it back is a battle many don't win. Your spirit, your happiness, they are priceless. Looking back now, with the wisdom of my 78 years, I can tell you with unwavering conviction that I don't regret my choice for a moment. Not moving away from my home, from my established life, and, most importantly, from my friends, was the best decision I ever made for my golden years. I stayed anchored to the very things that make life rich and full. I see the quiet joy in my everyday life, the easy laughter with familiar faces, the comfort of routines, the unspoken understanding that comes from decades of shared history. This life, built on deep roots, holds a richness and continued joy that I know, deep in my heart, I would have forfeited otherwise. We often talk about care for seniors in terms of physical needs, medications, meals, mobility assistance, and those things are vital, of course. But what about the care for our emotional well-being, our social spirit, our very sense of purpose? True care, I've learned, extends far beyond what a new community or even well-meaning family at a distance can provide. My friends, my neighbors, the familiar faces at the market, the volunteer group I've been with for years, they form an invisible, powerful care network. They check in, they share stories, they offer a helping hand before I even ask. This kind of care, this deep, intrinsic support, isn't something you can easily replicate or buy in a new place. It's built over time, with shared lives. So if you're standing at that crossroads, weighing the perceived conveniences of a move against the life you've built, my advice to you is this: explore every single option to stay put first. Fight for your connection. Don't give up your anchors easily. Look into local support services, in-home care, community programs that can help you maintain your independence right where you are. Talk to your friends, your neighbors, your community leaders. You might be surprised by the resources available and the willingness of others to help you stay exactly where you belong. Your existing friendships and community ties are not disposable. They are treasures worth protecting with all your might. Ultimately, your sunset years are your choice. The invaluable nature of established friendships and the comfort of your community cannot be overstated. Don't let the promise of easier or the well-intentioned urgings of others diminish what truly matters for your long-term happiness and spirit. Choose wisely. Choose with your heart and your history in mind. Choose the path that nourishes your soul, keeps your laughter light, and your connections strong. Because a life rich with connection is, in the end, the most joyful retirement of all. Thank you for joining me today. I'd love to hear from you. Leave a comment below and share one insight you gained today and how you might apply it to your own life. Your thoughts are important to us and help build this wonderful community of shared wisdom. If you found this video helpful, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who might need to hear these truths. Your support helps us continue creating content to inform and inspire you.